Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DAWG podcast. Today we got James Stephenson. He is pretty popular on Instagram. It's MyStepdad55. How you doing today, James?
I'm doing well, Alex. Thank you.
Yeah, so
So,
tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, can I ask a question for what is DAW, the Dawg Podcast? Does that stand for something? Is that all your initials, or
You
where does
know,
that?
that's a really good question, James. Originally, no one's actually asked us this before in the 4 months that
Oh,
we've been doing this.
oh,
It's kind of just a thing we came up with. We really love Kiki, which is the mascot of this channel. So in the bottom right, you'll see a little like pixel dog. That's
oh,
Truman's dog. So we just kind of named it after him. I have a couple dogs too, as they're over there. So it's
okay,
it's just kind of like a big thing for us. So that's why we're called the Dawg Podcast.
cool. Okay, cool. Yeah. So did you guys know each other before you started going to college, or?
Yeah, we've been friends throughout high school.
Okay, cool,
Yeah,
cool.
we all went to the same small town with like a population of 2,000. So we're all just trying to stick together. We're all still in colleges in Indiana, so it's not the worst, but it's definitely a bit of a drive.
Uh-huh. Well, cool. Well, good.
yep.
So what do you want to know? I my background,
Yeah, I guess
what
I
do you
guess
want
just
to
give us a
do?
little summary of who you are for our audience that might not know you,
Okay.
just for like a basis.
Okay. Well, and what's relevant mostly to what I'm doing on Instagram and YouTube is the fact that I grew up without a dad. My parents were divorced when I was two. They were separated before I was even born. So I grew up without a dad, and that was back in the 60s and 70s. So quite a while ago. And back then it was kind of rare. And now it's much more common to grow up without a dad or for dad not to be in the home anymore, which is unfortunate. There's a lot of negative impacts that come into life when your dad's not in your life, and particularly for young men, for young women too. But my experience is the young man growing up, so that's who I feel like I can help the most work through the challenges, the emotional challenges, the how to do thing stuff. And so I started a YouTube channel four and a half years ago. No. Well, I don't know, about three and a half, maybe 4 years ago. I called it My Stepdad channel and started putting videos out there. And I'm like you guys, I know you're just celebrating 100 subscribers, and congratulations on that, because it seems like it never goes up, right?
Yeah.
And even after 3.5 years, I'm at like 4,800 on YouTube now. But I started making shorts a while ago, and I would cross post those. And
Hmm.
last Thanksgiving, one of them, for whatever reason, I have no idea why, just took off on Instagram. And so I've been on a crash course on Instagram, and trying to figure out how to feed the beast, how to keep up, and it's been rewarding and gratifying. But
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
So I was watching a few of your videos on Instagram.
uh-huh.
For example, the snow shoveling one or the how to peel an orange one. And I was wondering, so when you come up with these video ideas, are you doing something like you just normally do and you're like, hey, that would make a really good video for people that don't know? Or do you have it sort of planned out? What's the process look like for that?
That's a great question, Alex, because when I started, my thought was, I grew up without a dad. If there's a kid that's growing up, a young man growing up, and he doesn't have his dad, I'm just basically taking him along with me. So
Right.
today I'm gonna clean the garage. Okay, I'll make a cleaning the garage video. And that's mostly what I still do, though. With the bigger exposure, I'm trying to put a little more thought behind it.
Right.
Kind of like you guys said you're doing in the next few months in terms of upgrading and doing what you can do. But I think a lot of what is spoken to people has been, it's just me doing what I'm doing, and hopefully giving some encouragement and some love. I think that's the biggest challenge for someone that doesn't have a dad is, it'd be nice to have a dad that loved me, that cared about me. And so that's really mostly what I'm trying to convey in all the videos I do. whether it's cleaning up cat barf or peeling an orange or, or doing some kind of a home repair or something like that.
Or like shaving a cat, which I thought was just a crazy video to begin with, and to have that one be the one that really blows up.
I know.
That
Well,
is pretty
there's
cool.
a lot of people want to shave their cats. Speaking of which, he just walked in. He might pop up on the desk here before we're done. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about predating your YouTube channel. So I've heard that you go to college. Where did you go, and what specifically did you go for?
I went to I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. So I lived at home, limited financial resources. So I lived at home and commuted to school. And I got my degree in mechanical engineering. And then I moved to Michigan to go to work in the auto industry, and I got my master's out there, Oakland University, Oakland Hills, Michigan. Great place too. We lived there for about 15 years, and so that's where I got my master's and worked in the auto industry. And then my mom was getting older, felt like I had to get back closer to home. We moved back here a little bit north now in Utah, and went to work for a company that makes rocket motors, and I worked there for almost 12 years, 11 and a half years. And then I quit to do this and a few other things, but it's kind of crazy. So I'm still not sure where it's going to end, but hopefully good places.
Definitely. So it's kind of unique too that you talk about engineering, because Jacob and Alex go to Purdue University in Indiana, and what's unique about that is it has a really great engineering program and an agricultural program. So I thought that connection was, pretty cool. But can you give us a little bit more backstory on like why you decided to go into like rocket engines more so, and how is that different from more so like car parts?
Yeah. Well, it was more a choice of where can I get a job that would pay the best. Then I want to work on rocket motors. When I was coming out of college, my preference would have been to work in the aerospace. I took aircraft design classes, jet engine design classes, and I loved it. And I love flying. But I was finishing around 92. We were enjoying at the time what was called the peace dividend. So the Cold War was ending, and all the defense spending was dropping because at the time they didn't need it. So basically a lot of these companies were laying people off. However, I was able to get hired into the auto industry, which was fantastic. I loved it. It was fascinating to me. I still remember first time I walked into an auto plant. Any of you guys ever been? I mean, Indiana, that's close. There's a lot of plants around there. Have you been into a plant where they build cars or vehicles?
Yeah, I've been in Subaru. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
They're actually just building another Subaru plant like right off campus at Purdue too. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
In fact, I think I've been in that plant before, but the first one I was in was the Nissan plant in Smyrna, Tennessee. So outside of Nashville a little bit. I remember walking in there. So, maybe you can relate to this, maybe it's different now, but I remember coming out of college not terribly confident in my abilities. I mean, I felt like I was glad to graduate and learn as much as I could, because I felt like I was learning it all on my own. My mom was great for helping me with English reports, but technology or math was, I was at the mercy of our grad students that were teaching those classes, that their English wasn't even the best. And so, I was lacking in confidence coming to the auto industry, got the job, which was great. And thinking, okay, can I fake it till I make it? I've got my degree, I've had my classes, I can do the math, but that's different in the classroom than you're going to design a part now that's going to go on a vehicle. And, most companies, when they're hiring out of college, they understand that. So that it's okay. But I remember when I walked into that Nissan plant the first time and I looked at it, it was just phenomenal. And the thing that struck me most was you can't just design a car or a part. You've got to design how you're going to put the thing together, because that's as much of the engineering process as how is it going to, the physical design of the part. it was fascinating. Loved it. Loved working there. You know, it's all the jobs have challenges, and you're going to have that in whatever career you're in. You guys are studying forestry, I thought I heard. Is that right? Or
Yeah, I am studying forestry.
I am studying environmental science with a minor in soil science.
okay.
Yeah,
So are you
So
nice.
guys interested in the agriculture then? Or Jacob, what are you
Uh,
planning on doing with it then?
I want to go out west and work in national parks and do research with Cal Fire
Uh-huh.
on wildfires and stuff like that.
Cool. Cool.
I well, when I was younger, I used to go to my family farm all the time and help my uncles or my brother just around the farm. And we lost the farm, so I'm hoping to use my degree to get back into that and get enough money to get the farm back, but also
Mhm.
like learn the skills so I can go out and do soil testing at the farm. I really want to work for like Beck's Hybrids seed
Mhm.
company, do
Mhm.
something there, like be an agronomist or something there. But
Yeah,
that's my plan going
it's a
forward.
big industry, so it's not one I'm terribly familiar with, but there's a lot of farmland out where I live too, because you guys mentioned y'all come from a town with like 2,000 people. There's around 10,000 the one I live in, but that's still small relative to
Small.
Detroit or somewhere else like that.
All
And
right.
Caden, what about you?
Yeah, I'm doing things like finance, and I'm looking into sustainable, entrepreneurship, and then I'm getting a minor in film production. So
Uh,
kind of just doing a lot of things, but yeah, mainly in the finance department.
uh-huh. Cool. Cool.
So I'm kind of curious. You said you like love flying and were wanted to go into aerospace. So do you have a favorite plane?
No, no. When I was younger, I had a good friend of mine right across the street. His name was, well, Dan. I'll just call him Dan. He ended up being a CFO for a company in New York or somewhere. He's back here now, but we would mow the neighbor lady's lawn across the street from him every week. And then we'd get on the bus and ride it downtown and go buy plastic model planes. It was always jets, so it was fighter jets. So, but back then F4s, F-16s, those were the planes. I don't the F-18 wasn't even out by then. So commercial or small general aviation aircraft, I'm not even that terribly familiar with. I've been up in a few of them. In fact, one of the episodes on the channel, working for a rocket motor company, a lot of former astronauts were there because we made the solid rocket boosters that when that was in production, which it's not anymore. And a lot of the astronauts out of the astronaut corps, when they retired from NASA, they would go to work for some of the supplier companies. So we had some, and one of them, great guy, Kent Rominger is his name, and he's retired from there now too. But when I started my YouTube channel, I reached out to him and asked if he'd film one with me, and he did. And he took me up flying in his little plane. I think he said it was even his dad's plane. I'm not sure. His dad had owned it before he did. It's just a little four-seater. I got my two sons in there to be the cameramen in the back, and he took us up flying and flew from Salt Lake over where I live and out a ways and back. But it's just cool. It's cool physics wise too. I had someone on Instagram ask the question because I just got back from 2 weeks at my daughter's house in St. Louis, and flying commercially, of course. And someone asked when I was out there, said, I've never flown before. Can you make a video on how to fly, what the process is? So I said, yeah, that'd be a great one. So on the trip back, I'm filming all this stuff. And after I got seated in the plane and we were just a little bit behind the wing, I held the phone up out the window and said, now this has nothing to do with flying, but let me explain to you why a plane goes up when it's going, you get enough forward
Right.
velocity, the airflow over the top is faster than the airflow underneath, creates lift, and that's what does it. And anyway, and jet engine on that plane, let me explain to you, it's sucking in air, compresses it way down, fires in fuel and burns, and it's burning continuously, and it creates a bunch of thrust that goes out back and all that stuff. That's what I studied in college, but I never even working on airplanes at all. So, but it was fun. It was cool.
Yeah.
But I don't have a favorite plane, Jacob. I don't know. It'd be whichever plane I can go fly in for free would be my favorite plane. But
So why haven't you thought of because it looks like you know a lot about it. Why haven't you thought about making a channel or doing more episodes about mechanical engineering and stuff with planes?
Because the need is not as great for that as it is to help young men that are growing up without a dad. That is a far, far, far bigger challenge in our society today. I mean, we need engineers. Don't get me wrong. We need educated young men and young women for the next generation. I heard Elon Musk. It was a little short that came up on the YouTube feed quite a while ago. He says our biggest challenge is going to be we don't have enough people. It's not technology. We don't have enough people. And it's not just people. We need people that have the right knowledge and the right skill set. So that's a real thing. But that's why, Caedyn, I haven't done that. I thought about doing it. Let me do an episode on doing a statics problem or some kind of a physics math thing. But you can go to Khan Academy, and that's
Yeah.
great. And so to me, it's just the most important thing is helping young men that have grown up without a dad get through the emotions and the psychology and gain the confidence so that hopefully they can break that cycle. So they're not the dad that's not with their kids if and when they choose to be a dad. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes.
And any of you three grow up without your dads, or your dad's in your life?
No.
So go ahead, Alex. You can go first. It's fine.
All right. No, my parents are together. My dad was there pretty much throughout my life.
Good relationship with him? Do you have?
Uh, yeah. I talk to him every once in a while, but if it's more like if I need something, I go to my mom and then I talk to him through her sort of thing.
Okay.
But it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was bad. So
Caedyn, what about you?
Yeah, so I have a good relationship with my father now. Originally, I was born in Indy, and my parents were together, whatever, and then they never got married, but they separated when I was 2, and we moved back to my mom's hometown, which was Winnemac. And I would only see my dad maybe like once or twice every weekend until I was like maybe 10. So anytime I would see him, we'd be like doing things together, but it was never like he was helping me with math problems or he was teaching me how to do things. He was just kind of like there to use the time that we had to like go do something fun. And then he moved back to Winnemac to kind of take care of his parents a little bit and to also see me more. And since then, he's been great. We go to movies all the time. I'm a second degree Taekwondo black belt, and he was the one that drove me 45 minutes one way to go there, wait an hour and a half for me to get done, drive me back 2 or 3 times a week. He'd drive me to like Wisconsin for tournaments. So I mean, he's definitely there now. I think he understands that he missed a lot with me, but yeah, no, he's there. But it was for me, it was really hard growing up without that that dynamic, that relationship just between like a mother and a father. And so I think it's like kind of hard for me and other people I know to like know what a good relationship is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I felt when I was a teenager. I'm thinking, how am I going to do as a husband or a dad, because I haven't had one there to show me how. But no in-home role models, if you will. No, that's good. But just so you were about 10 when he came back to the neighborhood, basically. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And Jacob, what about you?
So I was born into a farming family. So me and my dad, basically, I was worked every day, and we'd just work together. And anything that was wrong, it was my fault. So I'd go back and fix it. But it's good.
How many siblings do you guys have?
I have one.
I have 5.
Told you
Yeah, no, that's a really cute cat.
yeah. He's due for a shave again, by the way, too, because it's springtime. But sorry. So, how many, Jacob? I didn't hear.
I have one.
Just one. Okay.
I have 5.
5 siblings, so 6 kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I have 2 stepsisters.
Okay. Cool. In case you're, I haven't filmed it yet, but I had a stepson. One of my followers messaged me and asked if I had any pointers I could do a video on how to do a job interview. And I told him, I said, I can't make one fast enough for what you need. So let's do a fake one. I'll just have a call with you. And we did a practice interview. Unfortunately, he didn't get the job he was interviewing for. He did really well as I role played with him. But before that, I talked to a guy I know that works at the local Walmart. He's a manager there, and asked him, about what do you look for when you're interviewing someone? He said, if the guy is from a farm, he's got a job because they know how to work. So you got that in your favor, Jacob, and all of you, if you were working on the farm. But all right, Felix, you got to move, please. We've been gone for 2 weeks, and he's very needy right now. He wants his attention again.
So I thought it was interesting because I found your Instagram a long time ago, I think over a year ago. And I didn't actually know at the time that you had a YouTube channel, but you've done like basic videos like how to tie a tie, and that's everywhere. But I think it's interesting that you really expanded the niche and have been able to kind of get into a more specialized area of kind of developing your wholesomeness and that emotional connection, because you say your whole part isn't just like, oh, show people how to change a tire, but more so like how to connect and like how to be a father in one point or another. And so the whole thing is like, when did you know that you had to make this channel?
It was 2015 when I reserved the domain name, and I had been thinking about it for probably a few years before then. And I'm actually formed in 2021. I formed it as a 501c3, so I've got a legal entity, MyStepdad.org Inc. I guess they don't put the dot in the name, so it's MyStepdad.org Inc. But and that's just to have a place, and to make it a nonprofit. I love it when people support it, and there's a lot of supportive people, and that's great. So, it was probably at least 10 years ago, maybe even more. But probably about 10 years ago, just, we've got, my wife and I have 5 children. We have 3 boys and 2 girls. And out at work, there's a lot of encouragement, and it's fantastic to have women and girls in STEM classes, and that's great. But my concern is that with all those efforts, the unspoken message to the young men is that you're not welcome here. And, and I know that's not the intent, but I'm afraid that is the message that goes or is perceived by a lot of people. So that was one thing I remember, because a lot of times they'd have things for girls to come and learn STEM stuff on a Saturday, and they'd ask for people to come help teach those things. And I even did some of those, and that's great. It is great. But I remember thinking, well, wait a minute, I can't take my son to that, and that's okay in my case because I can show my son that. But if I think about when I was a young man and my dad wasn't there, who's going to take me to something like that? And today there's, fatherlessness is epidemic in society. There's a lot of challenges we got in society, but quite honestly, this has got to be close to the root problem, if not the root problem. So from, I don't know how you define the biggest societal problem, but I know you guys had some stuff like on prisons. Well, tell me about the prison populations. Who's in there?
Mostly men.
Mostly men. And how many have good dads?
Probably not a lot of them.
Mostly none. So, if you want to fix some of those problems, let's help dads be, let's raise the level of what we perceive the value and benefit to society of having good dads engaged with their kids and in their homes and involved with them. I think we could fix a lot of the problems in society if we can break that cycle of fatherlessness.
Mm-hmm. I think I can speak for all of us when I say that we definitely agree with that. I think a big part of it too is that when you look at a lot of societal issues, they label a lot of it as just mental illness issues, but they never have like factors or one main factor to say that this is what caused them to do something like this. And you know, outside of prisons, you talk about like suicide rates or relationships or school shootings, anything like that. And I've never really thought about it as like it could be something as simple as not having this key factor relationship with your father.
Yeah, I hope more people start thinking about it, because I think that is probably the biggest issue that drives all of this. All of the problems, or a lot of the societal challenges that we see today. And I honestly, I try to, I don't know, I guess I don't want to get political, because that's more polarizing, and I don't want to polarize. I really, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, whatever. It doesn't matter. If you don't have a dad and you need some help from a dad, then I'd love to help you out.
Right.
And mostly, hopefully, so that you can break through those emotional challenges that you have, and you do have them if you grew up with a negative relationship with your dad, or an absentee dad. A lot of people that have messaged me, my dad died when I was 6 or something. And it's like, oh, in my case, my dad wasn't there. He lived in California. We were in Utah. So I'd see him a couple weeks a year, and we'd go down. He was nice. I had a good relationship with him. I really did. In fact, part of the biggest challenge in my case was I didn't realize that I had some of the underlying emotional feelings because my dad wasn't there. And it usually, well, I say usually, in my experience, it evidenced in self-doubt, self-criticism, wondering if I'm good enough for whatever. What kind of a dad am I going to be? What kind of a husband am I going to be? Am I going to be able to make it when I go to college? Am I going to be able to make it when I get a job? Stuff like that. And and you muscle through and you get through, but it's a lot more work and a lot more effort, and you just carry it with you through your life. Most of the time you probably bury it in your subconscious, and it's like carrying a bag of rocks around with you for the rest of your life. So if I can help someone drop their bag of rocks, then that'd be good.
So I have a question. You said that you grew up with that dad being very prevalent in your life. And now you're teaching all these things, but where did you teach yourself these things? Was there another person in your life that helped you?
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, that the role model for what I'm doing now. I did have a stepdad when I was growing up. He was a guy in our neighborhood. He was one of the leaders in our local scout group in our community. And so when I turned 12 and started coming to that group, he was one of 3 or 4 other adult leaders in there. But his name was Mark Gould. He passed away in, I think, 2012. But and he beyond being a scout leader for me, he just took me under his wing. I mean, I'd go over to his house on Sundays. My mom didn't watch football, but I'd go over to his house, and the football game was on, and he'd pull out the crackers and cheese, and I was welcome to come there. We'd go camping, and he'd take me with him camping, and his family. And I mean, his kids were older than me, so they were all grown. In fact, his one son-in-law actually was another one of the scout leaders, younger obviously, but he was there. But his kids were all adults by then. But him and his wife just took me under his wing. When you guys know the rock group Kiss, right?
Yeah.
One of the greatest things, when my kids were getting older, they started liking the same music I liked when I was a kid. It's like, man, this is great. But well, Kiss was one of them, and Kiss was coming to town. One of my friends was a big fan of the rock group Kiss. Well, Kiss wasn't very popular with the adults, I don't think. And I mentioned to Mark Gould that I said, Mark, they're coming to town, man. I'd like to go to that. And he looked at me and he said, he called me Jimmy. He said, Jimmy, if you go to that concert, I'm going to come down there. I'm going to find you. I'm going to drag you out of there, and I'm going to kick your butt all the way home. And I just went on. I told my friend that, who was the big Kiss fan. I was really just wanting to go because my friend wanted to go. I did like their music, but my friend said, man, if he said that to me, I'd be so pissed. And I didn't say anything to my friend, but my thought inside was I loved the fact that he told that to me, because I knew he did it because he loved me. He cared about me. I mean, that was the biggest thing that Mark Gould did for me. It was a good blue collar adult man that cared about me and enough to chew me out sometimes. He did come over. We needed new brakes. I mean, it had drum brakes on the front. I don't know if any cars have drum brakes on the front or anywhere anymore, but he showed me how to change the brakes on my mom's car. And, we were helping neighbors put roofs, re-roof their houses. Then I'd be up there and he'd be up there too, and other guys too. But so, yeah, I did have someone to kind of learn some of that stuff from and ask questions too, I guess. I don't remember asking a lot of questions, but just spending time. I mean, when we go camping, they were on-off bikes, enduros, I guess you call them, but I learned how to ride a motorcycle with him, and because he showed me how, and ride on back, and eventually he let me take it. I mean, how many guys would let some neighborhood teenage kid get on his motorcycle and go for a ride in the mountains? So yeah, I did have like my stepdad Mark, and I had others too. Well, most of my friends, their moms and dads were still together, and so I did see their examples. Danny, that I mentioned before, that we go mow the lawn and then go build models. Well, his mom and dad were there. His dad was a surrogate dad for me too, but less so. Mark was the guy for me. But
So you talk about building model rockets and airplanes, but did a lot of this inspiration for what you would later do in college come from Mark?
probably not so much from Mark. No, it was probably others in the neighborhood. Dan, as much as anyone, because Dan was, he was the model airplane. He did all the research on airplanes and the Cold War. We were Cold War kids back then, and so it was like, the Russians have this and we have this, and let's pretend we're gonna have a dogfight or a he he would in his backyard, he would dig holes in the ground. He'd take adding machine paper rolls, right? Those little paper rolls, the cores to those. He'd glue those together and make little ICBMs out of them and put them in his little silos in his backyard. I mean, it was probably more from Danny than anyone that I got the technical stuff. And I did, we had no video games. Pong came out, I think someone said in 72, 74. So we didn't have the distractions that you guys are challenged with today. So we had to entertain ourselves. So we did a lot of outdoor stuff, basketball in the driveway, model rockets, model planes. We did a lot of that stuff. And so Danny's older brother, Tony, he was actually the engineering geek. In fact, he was a couple years ahead of us. When he graduated high school, his parents gave him a Super 8 video camera for graduation. That was a big deal. And so we made a movie. It's on YouTube now because he's uploaded it to YouTube.
That's right.
But we would do stuff like that, and they would make models. So it was probably more from those guys that I picked up the engineering. So I made a lot of stuff with masking tape. You just take masking tape and a box and a dowel and some string, and I learned the electronics parts from Tony, because Tony would, you'd go to Radio Shack. I don't know if they're still in business even, but because the one around here has gone out. But you could buy little electric motors, a little tray to hold batteries and connect them up, and a little switch. And so we'd wire this little motor, still a gearbox out of some toy that broke down, but the gearbox was still good, hooked the motor up to it. And so we made a little crane I could steer with strings and stuff like that. But I don't know, it's probably more just their influence than innate desire or whatever else. They did have what was it? It was a whirly bird. I think it was a little powered helicopter. I mean, today you got drones, right? Well, this one was on the arm, but you could control the elevation. So you'd give it more throttle and it would go up, and then you'd tilt it and it would go forward. But it was hooked on a center pivot thing. So all it do is go in a circle and fly that around. But toys like that, I guess, get you interested in what's possible, what's fun. But I feel like I'm rambling now.
No, no, you're not. You're not. You rarely see anything like that today, though. I mean, obviously there's drones and stuff, but kids nowadays really aren't just finding a motor out of a toy and then creating another toy from it. I think that's,
Repurposing, yeah.
yeah. You rarely ever see that.
Well, or even if the tape player, the cassette tape player, and when it quit working, you'd take it apart and try to figure it out, right? Well, this rubber band busted, so we'd put a rubber band on it to replace the belt that was in there, but it had different tension, so it would play faster or slower, Well, it works, but it's not quite the same,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what do you got to lose? If it's not going to work anyway, might as well take it apart and see if you can figure it out.
That's true. True.
Which is also true today, except for stuff like this. It's a little harder. There's not much mechanical in this. It's all electrical.
Everything's so much smaller too.
Yeah. Yeah.
To shift gears for a second, I was investigating on your website for a little bit about a week or two ago, and I downloaded your little guide, your map to manhood. Can you talk a little about that? Like, how long did it take you to figure that out? Is there any scientific? Is it all you? Like, what was that about?
Yeah, it's not necessarily scientific. I had a question. Someone said, "Well, do you have a course or something that you want to teach young men growing up without a dad, or anyone growing up without a dad?" And I thought about it. I thought, no, actually the question they asked was, did Mark have something specific that he taught you? And the answer was no. He was just there for me and helpful and involved me. And he did teach me stuff like the car repairs or home repairs or stuff, just when it came up and mom needed help with something. So I just started thinking, what, from my perspective, what have been the biggest challenges that I've had that probably would have been easier or that I would have learned if my dad was there. And so, Caedyn, that's what, that was the genesis of that. Is it's like, okay, 4 different areas. It was just some brainstorming sessions in this room on the whiteboard here. And, what would it be socially? I mean, socially, there's, what would I learn? Mom taught me a lot. She was good with that. But, how to introduce yourself, how to behave. If you're going on dates, what's good manners, what's the right thing to do, discipline is, mom did his, one thing about being raised by a single mom is you have a lot of appreciation for single parents because it is a ton of work for 2 parents, let alone 1. But mom did a lot teaching us self-discipline, but when she wasn't there was no one doing it. But the chores chart, to just have a list of chores. If you do these things, you turn them into habits, then your house is going to be cleaner. You're going to feel better about yourself, which is the real benefit. And you'll be more efficient. You'll be happier, basically. So I just sat down and kind of mapped out and thought, well, so what in this area would be the sub lessons, if any, and ended up, I did try to make it 4 in each area. So there's like 16, because there's 4 paths: the social one, the self-discipline, learning your purpose, which is another one, and the most important one is the one about love, because that's learning to love yourself is the biggest challenge I think a fatherless young man has. So if you're going to strip away everything else, that's the one I would put in there, but the other ones add value too. But learning how to love yourself, because at least in my case, that was the biggest unknown. I didn't know that was the challenge that I had. Am I good enough? Why would dad leave me unless something was wrong with me? I mean, that's where it kind of stems from. When you're a little kid, adults don't make mistakes. I mean, that now as a teenager, you point out all the mistakes they make, right? And your parents particularly. But when you're a kid, then they're like gods. And so, if dad's not here for me, what's wrong with me that dad would leave me? And that little seed of a thought gets planted in there, and you grow with that. Then yeah, you learn to mask over it. You can even learn intellectually, oh yeah, no, dad didn't leave me, but the emotions that you have from childhood are still there. And until you deal with those, they're still there. So of all the things on the map to manhood, or the journey to manhood, learning how to love and learning to love yourself is the biggest, that's the most important, significant step of that whole thing. I don't know if that was the answer.
Yeah,
Caedyn,
no, that's great. I definitely agree with you on that part. A lot of it is self-confidence. It's one of the main reasons why I started martial arts way back when.
yeah,
But so you have the map of manhood on your website, and recently you've been giving, in the past couple months, some updates about a potential manuscript that you have going. You've
yeah,
spent, time editing. So can you talk about the process of that and how far you are to completing
yeah,
it, and how that's a little bit different from the guide? Is it just like extrapolating and expanding on those parts that you already have?
yeah. So this is supposed to look like the book. It looks like the book, but it's really just a printed cover design on another book, because the book doesn't exist yet. But the book, the Map to Manhood book, is the explanation. So it's stories about, some little story about that particular topic from my childhood, and then some actions that you can go through to work through how to do it yourself, basically. So if a guide for young men growing up without a dad is the subtitle of the book, and right now, in fact, I just got an email today from the publisher. So I'm using a hybrid publisher, which means that I'm basically paying the costs right now, but I'll own the rights. It's not as lengthy, and there's other pros and cons. And I don't know that I have the audience to even get a book deal from a big house publisher. Maybe I do now, but I don't think that's what I want to do anyway. So the publisher reached out to me. It's been through 2 rounds of professional editing, and now I'm going to the publisher, so it'll go to the book layout, and what other thing? Well, it has a lot of worksheets in the book. So each of these milestones on here has a worksheet. Okay, here's some actions you can do. Go do them. Make your chores chart and do it for a week. Make your bed every day, or clean the kitchen, wash the dishes, or whatever you put on your chores chart. Then do that for a week. Okay, or hopefully you'll keep going after the week. Health and nutrition, exercise. Jacob, you're into bodybuilding, right?
Yeah, I
Well,
am.
I'm guessing you exercise probably every day. I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
But not everyone does, right? Um, so health and nutrition stuff, and just beyond the bodybuilding. So my goal, hopefully that'll be out. It'll probably be about 3. I was hoping to be out by now, but I'm always more hopeful than actual happens. But it should be 3 to 4 months. So late summer, early fall, the book, The Map to Manhood, will be available then. And that's just a deeper explanation and worksheets and pages that you can keep track of that, to go through all the things on the download, Caedyn, that you've got in your hands already. Does that
Have
make
you,
sense?
yeah, have you, is there any link already on Amazon or any way that you would be able to like pre-order it per se?
Yeah, not yet, but hopefully that will be in the next month. I need to finish with the publisher. So I talked to probably 4 or 5 different publishers, folks I know that help publish books. And I've settled on this one, and she's really good and very supportive of the purpose behind the book. I want to make sure it's close enough to delivery before I start pre-selling, because I don't want you to buy it and have to wait 6 months to get a book. But hopefully that'll be here in the next month, where that would be available. Okay. Well, hopefully by the time this comes out, you'll see some posts on a Stepdad boot camp. So I'm gonna test I don't want to say test market. I'm going to try and see what the interest level is for basically going through this first path, which is the self-discipline one, and have a weekly call and get the worksheets out. The book's not out yet, but get the worksheets out for that one and help young men that want to go through that process to go through Stepdad boot camp. And we'll see how that goes. But hopefully you'll see some stuff about that here in the next week. We'll
Yeah,
see.
no. Yeah, that sounds really exciting actually. I never thought about you could be doing something like that. Is there, I guess, like that one person that messaged you talked about like having a course or something. Is there a reason why you never did a course? Is it just because like so many of your videos are already online, or because a lot of there's a lot of stigma around courses these days just because of there's a lot of people selling financial courses that come out to be very like scammy. So
Yeah.
why did you avoid one?
Well, I don't know that I avoided one. Well, and I guess I'll just tell you guys, I have a book out already. Small Steps, Big Feet. I published this book about 3 years ago with the intent of teaching courses about this. And this is more personal development growth. There is a section on finances. There's one on health. Jacob, you'd like that one, except that you're probably already past that one. And so I did that. I advertise local seminars and evening workshops and do stuff like that. But it's like starting a YouTube channel, right? I mean, how long till you get a couple subscribers? And it can be discouraging when you look at how long it takes, how much effort really is required to be successful at it. In my case, and that's probably one of the factors, but this last path on the map to manhood, the purpose path, was finding your purpose. I feel like I've been avoiding what I should be doing all along over the last 3 years, which I should be focusing on this. And I've always looked at it like I've got to have my source of income so that I can do this, because this is a not for profit. It's a charitable. I just want to do it. I don't want to do it for money. I don't want my motives to be suspect. That's probably the biggest reason I was averse to that. The reality is you can do a lot more if you have resources to do it with, other than scraping along and trying to do it. But I've learned a ton in the process over the last 4 years of offering courses on finance, in fact, but mostly budgeting, money management. I use Mint, taught couples how to do it. I taught individuals how to do it. I did a course for single moms. Good feedback. I love doing it, but it's like that's really not what I'm supposed to be doing right now. So I hopefully there will be more courses. I envision an online version that you can just take self-paced, as it were. The one I'm going to pilot will be a weekly Zoom call. And then we'll go over something and follow up in between. And then the next week we'll take the next milestone, go over those topics, answer questions, and hopefully get everyone adding that to what they did from week one and so forth, and building those self-discipline things that will help you be more successful. We like to be entertained. We like to have life easy, and there's nothing wrong with that, other than you're not happier overall if you're not living for a purpose and you don't have self-discipline on top of it. So
I'm kind of curious on what your opinion is on back when you were a child and your father was kind of absent. How do you think society's perspective has changed to the modern day with children without fathers?
I think society sees it as the norm now. It's more the exception for a traditional nuclear family to be intact now than it was when I was a kid. I was the exception back then. I mean, people, oh, your parents are divorced. Oh, and they'd look sorry for you at the time. These days it's, that's the norm. I remember when we moved back here, and I was surprised, but I go to the school and we're registering our kids, and we had them from elementary to high school at the time we moved back here. And the counselor was looking at me, he says, "Oh, they all have the same last name." And I'm thinking, is that rare? He said, "Well, these days, yeah." So, and it certainly shouldn't be a stigma for the kids particularly, and hopefully for anyone. But we got to understand there's a cost that we pay for mixing and matching families all the time. Not to say they can't be very successful, but it's more the exception, I think, than the rule for having a healthy multi-mixed family without the negative consequences. Did that even answer your question, Jacob, or not?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And so you've been married for 32 years now, which is absolutely mind-blowing. But can you talk a little bit about how you guys first met?
Yeah. Well, it was at a church event. We were going on I guess you call it a field trip. We're going on an outing. It was college, so this was I was in college. She had already graduated, but she was attending a student church group, and we were driving to some town, a couple hours away, and she was there and I was there, and by the end of the day, we were talking to each other and playing card games together, and about 7 months later, we got married. So I don't recommend that you make that decision that fast. But we did, and it's worked out. So I guess we did okay, but at least I did. I don't know if she did okay, but
So I mean, there's a big part in your book about relationships and dating. How do you think dating has changed since you started doing it? And have you updated that into your book, or have you talked more about like the traditional sense of dating when you were a kid?
That's a good point. I should have you read the manuscript and tell me, is this stuff even relevant anymore or not? Because I don't. I haven't dated since I got married, other than my wife, right? So I don't know. You say how dating is today. I don't know how dating is today. If it's different than when I did. I do know kids in my neighborhood, and I talk to them a little bit. I think it's more hanging out than dating, probably. But at some point, hopefully you pair up and decide if you want to be boyfriend and girlfriend, or hang out together more consistently, or go steady. I mean, do you call it go steady still? That's what we called it back then. So how do you know if you're in a relationship with someone then?
You don't really anymore.
Yeah,
You don't know.
It's pretty bad because in today's day and age, you could think you're talking to this girl and you're hanging out with her, but no idea whatsoever. Like, especially in college, it's pretty bad.
So do any of you guys have girlfriends at the moment? I never mean to put you on the spot here, but
we're all bachelors.
you're all you're all fair game, huh?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The podcast really helps out, getting us those girls.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure how that part will be relevant. I think it still is, because at some point, two of you have to agree that you're interested in seeing each other. And at some point, you would either, you can have a Hollywood open marriage if you want, which is crazy and baffles me. It's like, oh yeah, let's just sleep in the threesome tonight and for fun. Okay, well, that's not marriage to me. Okay. Certainly I wouldn't want kids in an environment like that, but in any event, you gotta figure that out at some point. So the hardest part about dating for me was and I wrote about this in the book, but you get to a point where you're interested in someone and you're not sure they are in you, right? If it's reciprocated. So how do you find that out? At some point, you just got to put at least one card on the table. You got to put that card on the table and say, okay, I'd like to be a little more serious. How do you feel about that? And, back in little kid days, we'd say, you want to go steady? Okay, I want to go steady. No, I don't want to go steady. Okay. But that's elementary school now. So when it becomes more serious, then it's the communication part and being ready for, no, she may not be interested. And but at some point you got to have that conversation, and hopefully you got enough social interaction before then that it makes sense to have that conversation, right?
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I had someone ask about, where do I go to meet girls? And I'm thinking, I can't tell you that because I'm not out meeting girls, So I made a
Right.
post and asked everyone else to say, hey, where do you help a stepson out? What do you do to meet girls? And I got all kinds of posts, which was fantastic. I love the community on Instagram, particularly, because there's more engagement there. And I think there's more of my demographic, or the demographic that would respond to this. YouTube, I didn't realize it, but I started out as more of a DIY channel and that doesn't necessarily talk to a young man growing up without a dad. Yeah, if he needs to fix something in his car, I'll stumble across the video, how to change the brakes or something, but that's not. And what took off on Instagram was the oil hinges on a door video, but it's just because at the end of the video, I said, this channel, I made it for YouTube. So I said, this channel is for young men growing up without a dad. If that's you, then I hope you'll subscribe. And as that I have no idea why that one picked up, because I say that on other ones too, but as that one got shared, people would say, you got to listen to the end. Listen to the end. Blew me away. And I thought maybe it's because my cat Felix, who's now asleep on the chair next to me, he walks through the door in the video. That doesn't hurt. But, anyway.
Speaking of topics, like you said, you're more of a DIY, and then you kind of went into the emotional side of it. Are there any topics that you don't feel comfortable discussing on your channel?
Well, there's some that I plan to do when the Journey to Manhood course comes out. Once the book comes out, then I'm, and it's still developing in my mind as well as on paper, but the Journey to Manhood, Stepdad Boot Camp would be this one. The Journey to Manhood would be, let's do the whole enchilada. All right. And that's going to be 6-9 months probably. And I don't know how many would do that, but some of the topics, some personal hygiene ones that comes up in the one, but I probably wouldn't have those on the public, but I'd probably have those behind a membership wall or something. Yeah, is some of that stuff that I'd probably keep to more of a membership area, or a subscriber area, that because those are the down and dirty questions that a young man has. What's it like to have sex? What's the first time, or what do you do? Or and it'd been nice if my dad was there. For me, it was my best friend who had gotten married before I did. And then the night before we get married, and he's sitting there helping me know what to expect and how things might unfold. And so anyway, so maybe some of those topics. I don't know. Otherwise, everyone talks about anything anyway.
I don't want to get into your finances or anything. You talk about your courses, paid membership, whether you want to do a one-time thing or monthly, but have you heard of websites called like Patreon and stuff like that?
Yeah, I got a Patreon, but I'm working on the integration with the CRM, and I haven't got that figured out yet. So the subscriber levels, so I've got 4 levels up there, because I had some people saying, hey, you need to start a Patreon. So I've got one. I've got 4 subscriber levels defined, but I haven't got the interface working with our CRM so that I can keep track of who's in there and email them and stuff like that. I've got a Discord channel. One of the levels will be, let's play Rocket League, a chance to play Rocket League with Stepdad. That's the one video game I do play. And my kids got it. So I'm going to stream that. I'm thinking every second and fourth Friday of the month. And if you're at this level, then we'll send you the code and you can hopefully jump on and figuring that out. And I could figure all that out, but I still don't have that integration for Patreon yet. So I need to get that done, and then I'll hopefully be making some posts about that, or get a birthday card from Stepdad on your birthday, you know. So I have heard of Patreon. I've got one on YouTube, but again, similar things I haven't really promoted. I'm just kind of like figuring it out because they have the subscriber things in there too, but that's a newer thing, and I haven't figured that one out yet.
Yeah.
So any recommendations before we're done? I want to ask you guys some questions too.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, what do you think a young man growing up without a dad today? And you guys are exact target audience, really. I mean, late high school, college, mid-20s. What are the questions you'd ask your dad that you haven't? Maybe I should ask that, because some questions you should ask someone else's dad and you're, oh, what are the toughest things?
I stated earlier that I did have a dad in my life growing up, but for me, like one of the things that like I struggled with growing up, and I didn't really ask my dad because I guess I didn't know how to approach him in that way, but like how to shave my face. I had no clue like how to do it, what I was doing it like at all. And it was kind of a struggle at first to like approach him to ask him how to do that, I guess. So that was one for me.
Sounds like your dad might have been like my friend's dad, because he was more reserved.
Yeah.
He didn't talk to us much at his house. We talked to his mom. His mom was great. She was in charge of the kids, and he went to work and brought home the paycheck and sat home and watched the news when he got home. But yeah. And you never saw him do it then. You didn't watch him. You didn't observe him.
No,
Okay.
I did not.
Okay. How to shave? Anything else?
Yeah.
I would say, especially nowadays, like kind of self-image and not really caring what other people think. Because I know back in middle school and high school, I was really like, what are other people going to think about me doing? Like if I do this, are people going to care and be mad at me or whatever? And then I think it's also kind of like the school system, because there's a lot of like trying to fit in and all that. But once you get out of there, it's kind of nobody really cares. You're a nobody, you're starting new. So you kind of just do what you want, and then you kind of find yourself that way after high school, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'd have to agree. I think it's about the uneasiness of who you are, and just how to manage a lot of emotions, because there's still that idea of like, quote, toxic masculinity, but at the same time you're not supposed to show a lot. And so it's just idea, because if you've had the, I guess, misfortune to see your dad cry, it's like such a shocking idea to even think that he would cry. And I guess it's just building that connection of the ability to express your emotions in a more healthy way. Because I mean, you see like a lot of younger people, like our generation, they don't care. Like they tell people that they go to therapy and that they have a support group. But I think a lot of young men don't have that support group that they need, especially because the disconnect between men and women today is growing vastly. So if they don't have their father there, I don't know who else they would really talk to.
Yeah.
But for me, I was just on my mom's butt the entire time that I was growing up. So I mean, like, I've had that emotional connection. But yeah, I think it's definitely just like how to act as a father and how to show your emotions, and definitely how to act in a relationship, like what is appropriate and what isn't.
Yeah.
I think that's a big one too, is the whole relationship side of it, because a lot of people, like men nowadays, don't know how to like treat a woman, or like how, like what you're supposed to do when you go out on a date. Like, one thing that my dad taught me is always shake her dad's hand, no matter what. Shake her dad's hand, shake her mom's hand, and no matter where you are, open the door for her. So it doesn't matter if like you're walking into the restaurant, open the car door for her. You always do it. So I think like just simple stuff like that when you're in a relationship is important
Yeah.
to hear.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I put some of that in the book too, in the dating section on the map to manhood. But these days, I mean, they may not appreciate that too. So you don't know.
Right. Yeah,
You
that's,
know,
that's true.
so you kind of almost have to check with them too. I
Right.
think.
Right.
But if that's your default and they see that, that's a good thing. So
Yeah.
that's cool. How much time do you guys spend playing video games?
I think
Well,
it really depends on how much our college load is. I think we spent a lot more last semester than this semester. I think probably, I don't know, if Truman was on here, it'd be a completely different answer. That man's grinding all the time in video games. But I'd say, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours a week,
Oh,
maybe.
that's not bad. Well, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it depends on weekends too.
Yeah, yeah. No, I understand, especially if especially right now, dead week and finals. Hopefully you're not doing a ton of it now. You got to get a break once in a while anyway, but
um, I will say though, in high school, I played a lot of video games just because like I really didn't have anything going on, and after school, after sports, like um it'd be one of the main way I'd be able to communicate with my friends when I'm not seeing them in person. So like we text each other, be like, hey, get on in like 30 minutes, and then we just play for hours. So
mhm.
I definitely don't play as much as I used to, but it probably similar to what Caedyn is, just depends on the week.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we used to grind Minecraft back in the day. If we ever get that inclination to do like 2 weeks of Minecraft, we're on like 24/7 for those 2 weeks. It's ridiculous. It is not healthy.
Yeah.
But I think we were also playing a lot more first semester too, because we were all in new environments with a ton of more people. So it was just that idea that we can go back to something familiar and be able to not lose these connections that we have with each other.
Yeah. Well, I think it's cool that you guys are doing this podcast together, this project together. You mentioned, Jacob, I think that it was like, you're worried about what your high school friends are. You're not going to see 99% of
Nope.
them probably after you graduate, 2 years after you graduate, if you're lucky. Our 40th anniversary, or not anniversary, what do you call it? 40th reunion, class reunion
Yeah,
is
yeah.
this year for me. So I graduated in '83. And I'm surprised, and social media has, Facebook particularly, is for our generation, is let you see what's going on for those that are in there. But prior to that, there were like three others that I would, when we lived in Michigan, we'd travel back here for vacation every summer, and I would make a point to connect with my 3 or 4 other buddies from high school, and we'd get together. And other than those guys, um, if you saw someone, it was just random or by chance or whatever. So good for you guys for doing this together, and maybe you'll be lifelong podcasters or YouTubers or whatever else. You'll be doing it
Yeah.
from the forests and farms.
Yeah. Wherever we are. But I guess to end it off here, I do have one more question.
Okay.
If you were to give a single piece of advice to someone out there right now who doesn't have that support from a father, what would that be?
It would be learn to love yourself. And that's a lot easier said than done. But spend some time thinking about that and learn to love yourself. You can't love others more than you can love yourself. You can learn how to love. That's why on the love path, the first one's pets. Felix is walking around them because it's easy to love a dog, a pet dog, right? Or a pet cat or whatever you have. Well, that's a good way to practice that emotion and that skill. and then go from there to your friends. You don't talk about love with your friends, but hopefully you really feel it and you have it for them. And then family, but ultimately you need to learn to love yourself. And like I said, that's a lot easier said than done, but that would be the piece of advice. Learn to truly love and value yourself. You have inherent value and worth, and you just need to realize that, recognize it, and feel it, and you'll be a lot better off than if you don't.
I think that's an amazing piece of advice. I think it's amazing what you're doing, that you're filling that void that some people have in their life. And I want to thank you for that, for making that Instagram, making the YouTube video. I think it's really cool that you're doing it.
Well, I'm glad you guys invited me to be on your podcast. I can't wait to see when you get 1,000 subscribers, and then when you pass me up, which probably won't be too long. Huh?
Well, glad to have you on the podcast. Thank you for taking time out of your day to talk to us.
You bet. My pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll
Appreciate you.
email you, and whenever that book comes out, you're free to DM us. I bet we'd all grab a copy of that.
Okay, I'll do that. You'll see posts on Instagram for sure. You should get plenty of notice. Hopefully it won't be too far. All right, you guys take care.
Yeah, you too,
You
man.
too. Thank you guys for tuning in to episode 16 of the Dawg Podcast. It was very inspiring having James Stephenson on. Make sure to check out his Instagram channel, MyStepdad55. It's very inspiring, and maybe it'll help a few of you out. Make sure to like and subscribe, and comment down below your favorite dad of all time.
Hey, thanks for getting to the end of the video. If you liked it, consider subscribing. If you want to see the curated playlist for this video, click the top picture. And other videos that you might like will be posted in the bottom picture. This has been Just Another College Kid, and I'll see you in the next one.